Today's lesson, I'd like to talk about strings in Python. A string represents a sequence of characters or symbols. Some of the characters can be human readable, some may not. So in other words, a string can represent both human readable or non-readable characters. In our lesson today, we will be focusing mostly on human readable characters. Now let's use Python console in PyCharm to learn how to define and use a string. You should be very familiar with Python console by now. A string in Python is defined by using single quotes, a pair of single quotes. This, in fact, is a string. If you're interested, you can check the type of this. It is a string. And what about length? 0. This string has nothing in it. Now, since we have learned variables, let's use a variable to store a string. This will be an empty string, but let's put something in it. For example, tell me something, and enter, check as 0, tell me something. Tell me something is a string, and referenced by variable s0. At the beginning of this lesson, remember I said a string can store both human readable and non-readable characters. Let's use an example to understand what I meant by that. Let's click this button to clear the console. All right, cleared. Still use this variable s0 that equal to some string, some \n words. Enter s0. Now you see this, there's a \n in s0. \n is a special character. If you print s0, the \n is not printed out. It does not make sense to print \n out. It's a special character. You see this line has \n is really what s0 stores. But again, when it is printed out, when you print it, when you print s0, this special character \n does not print out. \n in computer or in programming means line feed. Now, what if you do want to print this special character? You can use a special character R, and then so this time you call print s0, 0. Now you see this \n is part of the output. There are many special characters in programming. \n, for example, is a new line. It makes a new line. If it's \t, it is a horizontal tab. We will not spend much time to cover that. So let's move on. Again, let's click this rerun to clear the console. Now it's cleared. Let's define another two string. String 1, very nice. String 2, and good. Enter. If you want to check the length of this string, you can do this. len string 1, 9. Why is it 9? So if you start from the first character, V, E, R, Y, there's a space in it, and then N, I, C, E. There are 9 characters in string 1. So length of string 1 is 9. What about length of string 2? Before we hit enter, let's check. A, N, D, 3, there's a space, so that's a 4th character. And good. Good is 4-character word. So there are total 8 characters. Enter, yes, it is 8. If we want to perform string concatenation, basically means you put 2 strings together, you do this. String 1 plus string 2. Let's print. Print, just output the results to the console. Enter. Okay. Now the result string is really very nice, plus, and good. Notice there's no space between nice, the last character of the first string, and the first character of the second string. Now if we want to make it make the output a little better, print, yeah. String 1 plus, this is an empty character, then plus another string. Let's see. All right, now it is very nice and good. So indeed, you can use this plus operator for 2 strings. That's the concatenation. Now there's another interesting operator that can be used on string in Python. So for example, string 1 times 3. So multiply string 1 by 3. So this, in fact, will just repeat string 1 3 times. Very nice, very nice, very nice. 3 times. Another very common usage of a string is accessing the string or the individual character by indexing it. Restart the console. School variable. Let's define a variable school and assign a string to it. Remember, the string is defined by using single quotes, and that's our convention, even though double quotes can be used in Python for string as well. To access individual character in a string, we use square bracket. For example, if we want to check what's the first character of this school, square bracket, 0. 0 actually means give me the first character in school. So it's B. Keep in mind, string is case sensitive. And what about another position in school? School, for example, let's check 2. 0, 1, 2. That's actually the third character in school. I. So the third character in this, B-A-I, it is I. Now Python provides accessing string from reverse order, from the end. What if you want to check -1? What if I want to check the first character start from the end of this string? So it should be n. Well, let's say if it is n. Oops. Why is that? Oh, I'm sorry. This is because the name I spelled wrong. It should be schol. If you spell it wrong, Python thinks it is a different variable, which has never been defined. That's why it raises an error. schol is not defined. I spelled it wrong. Now I corrected it. Enter. Yes. The first character from the reverse of this string is n. Now what about I do this? Have to make sure I spelled correctly. What about I do this? 10. Well, guess what happens? If you access something is outside of this string, school has total 7 characters, and you give it 10. See if Python knows this. Well, Python indeed knows this index is out of range. Let's restart Python console. Restart it. We know we can use square brackets to access individual character in a string. What about we want to retrieve a substring from a string? This is called slicing. Again, let's use school. But this time we give it 2 words, 青岛, Baishan. Enter. We want to get a substring from this. So still using square bracket, but we want to retrieve the substring starting from the first position all the way up to 7. So this, in fact, will extract a substring from school starting at the first character and up to the 7th character. So let's check. Okay, it returns a substring from school. Now let's do another one. School, what about I want to do this? So this will return, this should return a substring from index 1 to index 2. Enter. In. I is at the index position 1, and n is at the index position 2. So when you slice in school from 1 to 3, it returns from index 1 to 2. Now let's do another example. School. Now I don't give it an index. This will extract the substring from school starting at index 9 all the way to the end. You can also do slicing from the other end. sh school. You use this negative sign to access a string from the other end. This would extract a substring from the 7th character from the other end. Now let me explain the index in a string a little further. Suppose we have a string s0 equals to Baishan. Well, I need to put this single mark. The index for string starts from 0 for the first character. So B is at index 0. And then from left to right, we increment the index 1 at a time. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when I access the string by index as 0, it really points to the very first character in the string. If I do 2, this is at index 2. So it will actually points to the third character in the string. This is all because the index starts at 0. Another typical operation on a string is finding whether a string contains a substring. Or in other words, finding whether a substring exists in a string. For example, at 0, this is our variable. Let's give it a string. We have 3 lessons a day. Now we want to find whether a letter E exists in this string. E. S. Find E. Return. So if the substring exists in the string, it returns the index because the first E is at the second position. The second position is actually index 1 because the index starts as 0. W starts as index 0, and E, this E starts at index 1. So we find E, the first occurrence of E is at index position 1. If we want to find a multiple letter substring, for example, half, now it returns 3 because H is at index position 3 in string S0.